A few years ago, we partnered with the team at KeyBridge Compliance to create one of our most downloaded resources, a practical guide to using testimonials under the SEC's marketing rule. That guide helped a lot of advisors navigate something that felt genuinely unfamiliar at the time. But the conversation has evolved. The SEC issued a new risk alert in December 2025 that makes it clear. Understanding the rule is no longer enough. Regulators want to see how firms are putting it into practice. So today I'm sitting down with Annie Varatharajah and Chris Payne from KeyBridge to talk about what's changed, what's working, and where advisors still have room to move forward. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you for having us.
Annie, when we first created this resource together, advisors were asking us, like, can I even do this? So what are you hearing from advisors now that we're 3.5 years out from the rule going into effect? And how has the nature of that question changed?
I think working on the marketing team here, testimonials is one of the most common questions we get from advisors. And when I first started on the team, I think a lot of them were just waiting it out and testing the waters just to see like how the SEC responded. And now that it's been a few years, I think they're ready to test the waters themselves. So I think really now the question is, right, like what has the risk been? What have we seen? And two, like how do we properly implement this compliantly so it's not a risk anymore?
That feels like a positive evolution to me from, should we even think about doing this to how can we do it in a compliant manner? That gives me hope because at FICOM, we really believe in the power of client voice. And for prospective clients who are researching a firm to be able to see themselves in the voice of current clients. And so we believe that testimonials can be quite powerful. So I'm happy to hear that the question has evolved. Chris, I know that in the SEC's December risk alert, it really did put a spotlight on the gap between having a policy and following the policy. So can you talk us through what some of the most common operational gaps have been when KeyBridge is working with firms?
One of the biggest operational gaps we see consistently is that firms have a policy on paper, but not a repeatable process behind it. So a lot of firms say that testimonials would be reviewed, approved, disclosed, and retained, but in practice, there's a breakdown somewhere. And the first gap is in collection. A lot of firms are informally collecting feedback from their clients, or they ask only certain clients or fail to recognize that referral programs or influencer activity or lead generation arrangements can trigger the rule. So the second gap is disclosures. I think the clearest takeaway from the SEC December risk alert is that the staff said that the most common reason testimonials and endorsements are non-compliant was that the required disclosures just simply weren't provided at the time they were disseminated, which can be tricky. Like if there's a social media post, you have to make sure that that testimonial or that endorsement actually includes the disclosure alongside with it, which can get like operationally difficult. The SEC also pointed out that some disclosures aren't following the right format. Advisors are burying the disclosure or putting it behind hyperlinks or showing it in smaller or lighter font. And a lot of that is, a disconnect between the marketing team and the compliance team. The marketers obviously don't want the disclosures creating ugly looking marketing materials. And they don't quite realize that, no, that's actually the SEC requires those disclosures be very clearly and prominently displayed. So those are the major issues we're seeing. There's also some issues on record keeping and oversight. Like firms just aren't going back to those old testimonials on an ongoing basis and making sure that those clients are still clients of the firm. And that's one of the things that the SEC made very clear. You have to disclose if they're a client or not.
A current client or not a current client.
Exactly.
There's a lot that you gave us there. Thank you. At the beginning, you were talking about activities that could trigger the rule. Can you go back to that? I think you said something about influencer activity. Like, what are some things that advisory firms might not understand that could trigger this rule?
A lot of advisors have an informal client referral program. that they, incentivize their current clients to give positive reviews. If you're giving a gift card, for example, or some type of, what may feel pretty silly to most advisors, if you have a formal program in place and you're doing it consistently, it's going to trigger this rule and it's going to trigger those disclosure requirements, unfortunately. So if you're doing that, like, that's a conversation that you need to be having from a compliance perspective. We have not yet seen a lot of social media, use of third-party influencers yet. You're seeing some occasional, like, high publicity ones out there, but for the most part, we haven't seen that yet in the wealth management space.
We haven't either. Like you said, there's a handful of high-profile $100 billion plus RAs that have some endorsements, but generally speaking, that's basis points of a percentage of the number of firms that are out there. I know that we have talked with you a bit about Google reviews and some of the operational challenges that Google reviews present. Can you quickly cover that?
So Google reviews is a kind of an ongoing conversation. Some firms have an informal process. They're gathering testimonials either organically, or they might make a real effort to collect testimonials from all their clients. If you have a structured process and you're encouraging your existing clients to go out and leave Google reviews, how do you provide those necessary disclosures inside those Google reviews? Because when a client leaves a review on Google, they just leave their name. You won't necessarily know that they are in fact a client or not a client. If you have some type of incentive program, you have to disclose compensation. So how do you do that on Google? It's one of those things that we really need the SEC to give a little bit more guidance on, because there's a lot of debate between compliance officers on whether we can satisfy that compliance obligation.
It sounds like as long as the firm is not actively soliciting Google reviews, well, I should say it differently. It seems to me that there's a difference between actively soliciting reviews to be posted on Google and a client that, on their own terms, without being asked, posts a Google review. Is that accurate?
That's exactly right, Meg. Advisors have no control over what clients are saying on them, or non-clients are saying about them on the internet. So it's only when the advisor entangles themselves or is pushing them to do it. So
Okay, got it. Thank you for that clarity. Annie, in the article that both of you wrote, you highlighted that cherry picking is one of the bigger concerns. We hear that from advisors as well. How can I do this? Can I select my favorite clients? Can I not? What are the rules? And, we'd love to help our clients and the industry really understand, how do you solicit testimonials in a way that's not considered cherry picking? Like, what's the most defensible approach?
There are a couple ways to do it, but we really want to avoid cherry picking. It's like, obviously, we can't ask our top clients for testimonials and only market those. What we usually recommend for our clients is to, one, ask all of their clients via an email survey, so you have a recorded response of the responses. So when the SEC comes in, you could just give it to them. And then if you want to market those, don't pick the top 3. Like, if you want to market a couple on your homepage of your website, don't pick the top most glowing. Just pick 3 that you think are representative of all the testimonials you receive and highlight those on your homepage. And then add the proper disclosures, and then add a link that takes someone to a landing page that has all the responses you received. Now, that's not really, you can't really ask all your clients if, say, you want to do a video testimonial. So in those cases, we usually recommend doing a randomized time period. So say, you're like, okay, in May, we're going to ask all our clients that come in for a one-on-one to see if they would like to give us a video testimonial. And then you can state and prove that that is a random time period, so it's not cherry picked.
And we had talked about potentially also saying, clients who have been with the firm for less than a year or over a year, like, as long as there is some objectivity to some sort of time bound or moment in time, that could also potentially be a way to not have to engage all of your clients, but a smaller group of clients. Is that right?
Yes, it may pose some more risk, but I think that is definitely a defensible way to state that it was a randomized time period. I mean, a randomized pick of clients.
And I want to just underscore something that you said, because I don't think that it's clear to the industry, which is when you are formally asking for testimonials, that you are required to publish all of the testimonials that you receive and confirm that they're current clients. And so many firms, we would recommend this as well. If I come to our clients, they'll put, to your point, like 3 testimonials on their homepage and then maybe sprinkle additional throughout the website. We know and understand how important the disclosures are, that you can read them, that it's in the right size font, that they're not totally hidden. But what I think is less clear is that you also have to have a landing page that you can link to that shows all of the testimonials that you've reviewed. So am I stating that correctly?
Yep. The SEC knows it's impossible to add all your testimonials on your homepage or brochure. So they just want to make sure that the public has a full picture, has access to a full picture. So that's why adding the link allows people to get the full picture of all the testimonials received.
Chris, I know that you put in the article that you wrote that only about 10% of KeyBridge's current clients are actively using testimonials. So for the other 90%, like, what do you think is holding them back?
Yeah, no, I've asked advisors. I think a big part of what holds advisors back is fear. So some of that fear is just client facing. They're worried about what clients might say if they open the door to testimonials. If you ask for feedback, sometimes that feedback's going to be negative, or creating a public record that's harder to control than traditional marketing copy. Because if clients are out there, posting on Google reviews, it's out there, and you don't know what they're going to say. But then there's like regulatory fear. A lot of advisors built their business based on, word of mouth referral business, and they just don't want to change. But also they heard a lot about the marketing rule. They were scared about, being at the leading edge of using testimonials, and they might feel like it's too risky or too complicated. But like, the one thing I think is specifically true about testimonials versus the other pieces of that rule was testimonials have very limited compliance. Like, the disclosure is remarkably simple. Now you have a couple clear and prominent disclosures, but for most clients that give testimonials, you're just disclosing that they're a current client of the firm. Most advisors aren't giving any type of compensation for testimonials, and most advisors don't have a conflict of interest with those clients. So for most advisors, the disclosure is basically going to be, you might use a nickname for the client and then have just current client or something to that effect next to their name. And that's about it. You're going to link to some other disclosures, but that's typically on a landing page on the advisor website or something like that. But the other issues are, there are some advisors that haven't updated their policies or didn't actually implement it, but that's just normal investment advisor compliance issues that an advisor working with a qualified CCO, they'll be able to easily address that. So for the advisor still on the fence, my message would be pretty clear. Like, don't let fear of the compliance obligations make the decision for you, because to be honest, like, the question's not really testimonials, are they too dangerous? The question is, can we build a process that's fair, documented, and repeatable?
I agree. And we have not had an experience where our clients have received negative feedback. I mean, client retention industry wide is like 98%,
Yeah.
So I think that what we've experienced is actually the opposite, where these clients are so excited and eager to talk about why they love working with their advisor. And it's actually been like a really fulfilling process to get the feedback. So I love that you're saying don't let fear hold you back. And I would also say don't let, a fear of a negative review coming in hold you back. We just haven't seen it. So advisors who are watching this today, or executives at advisory firms, and they want to get started, or they want to pressure test the program that they already have in place, what would you say are the first 2 or 3 things they should be looking at?
So first, like Chris mentioned, probably the most important thing is making sure their policies and procedures and making sure what they're practicing aligns with what they're stating and that it's a repeatable process. Second, if they already are marketing testimonials, making sure that they have a copy of responses. We've seen that. And one of our clients wasn't able to provide them a copy of the responses, and that the testimonials that they're marketing are still from current clients. So, clients come and go. So just making sure going through them maybe yearly to make sure that they're still from current clients. And then lastly, just to make sure that what you're marketing is not cherry picked and that they have all the proper disclosures.
During periods of market volatility, like clients tend to be more likely to change advisors. So the last 6 to 12 months has been more volatile. So if you got testimonials 2 years ago when the rule came out, or 2 or 3 years ago, like you should really have a process to do it every 6 months or so, just to quickly go through testimonials.
Such important and insightful information. Thank you. So testimonials continue to be one of the most underused tools in an advisor's marketing strategy. And what I love that you both, Chris and Annie, made clear today is that the path forward doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be intentional. If you want to dig deeper, we will link to an updated resource here in the blog post. And of course, the teams at FICOM and KeyBridge are great places to start if you're looking for guidance. Thank you, Chris and Annie, for joining me, and thank you to everyone for watching.